On this week's show, we're talking about rear suspension setup on the TRX4. We're going to be comparing lift kits to universal shock towers. So first up, we have the universal shock tower. It gets mounted in the rear. It replaces the original shock tower, and it has 11 positions that you can mount your shock to. So next up, we have a 3-position lift kit, which gets mounted in the area where the shock is. In the last couple of videos, we changed the position of the shock from its original post to the chassis. This gave us a drastic increase of performance. The only thing is the chassis doesn't sit parallel to the ground, and the shock doesn't really have a lot of play going downwards. On the other hand, I have a lot of droop, so I do have a lot of contact if I am going through deep holes. So the plan is using one of these two, either the suspension lift kit or the universal shock mount, to find a position of the shock where I can balance the rear axle better without it hitting its limit. So first up, I will be installing the shock tower. So both the shock towers are mounted. Now I can take the shock and position it in any of these 10 holes. So I've just realized that the setting of the spring touches the corner of the tower, so I'm going to be putting a spacer in between. I'm going to put the screw in and just add a Loctite nut, so that I have a little bit more distance between the shock tower and the shock absorber. So at this middle setting, I actually do have a little bit of down travel and I have up travel, but I'm kind of not in the middle. I think if I just move it up to the top one, not the very top one here, just that top one over there, I might have a little bit more down travel. At the moment I'm quite happy with it. The chassis is sitting straight and I do have travel, but I'm just going to change it and see what the difference is between those two holes. As you can see, in between these two is probably like 2 to 3 millimeters difference. Let's put it in the top one. And let's see if I get a little bit more down travel, up travel on this one, so that it doesn't hit the limit of the shock absorber. Now at that setting, I can actually tighten the springs just a little bit more, because I can see the chassis is actually sitting a little bit at an angle backwards. So by tightening the springs, I can get the back to come up a little bit, making the chassis level, and I have quite a bit of travel in both ways. That's exactly where I want the car to be. So let's take it out on the trail, test this one, then take this one out, put the lift kit in, and see what the difference is. But while I'm out on the trail, I'm actually going to change and test each hole to see if I can actually feel a difference. Okay, I got to first charge the battery and then we're going to hit the trail. Now I'm going to change the suspension to the middle setting. Well, actually, I'm just going to set it to the bottom. I think it's just 2 millimeters in between. It says almost 1 centimeter between the top and the bottom. So let's take it straight to the bottom and see what the difference is. Okay, this is now with the setting at the bottom, and I can already feel, or even you can already see, that the suspension drops further down on the rear wheels, which is a better performance because you get more grip on the back wheels. That was a little bit less wheel spin. And there you can see the rear axle is allowing a little bit more travel, giving me a little bit more stability on this rock. Ha ha ha, very funny. I think I spoke too soon. I've actually just messed that up. And try to get it into the proper position. That's that one there, right. A little bit more speed through there. Okay, almost sliding off the rock there. Okay, and let's see. This is perfect. And the downhill is also perfect. So I actually like that setting more, where the suspension or the shock absorber sits on the lower setting of the shock tower. Okay, let's take the shock towers out and replace them with the three, well, it's between 1 centimeter and, let me just check it for you guys, it's between 1 centimeter and approximately 2.4, or yeah, 2.4. So let's install that quickly and take another test. There we go, installed. So let's go out on the trail and see if there's a difference between the towers and the lift kit. Okay, now this is with the lift kit in the lowest setting. Immediately you can see that the droop of the rear axle is not as much. It still does it quite nicely. But now here comes the situation where I want to back up. I'm actually touching the body into the rock. Normally I would have a little more clearance there because I have more travel on the rear shocks. So that is definitely a difference. There as well, the car seems to lean a little bit further because the tire doesn't come down early, it comes down very late. But still not a bad setup. Now let's see the downhill. The angle of the downhill, the suspension doesn't seem to be as high, but the car is exactly the same. There's no difference. And now we're going to change the setting to the lowest setting, so we're going to do exactly the same as we did with the shock towers. We're going to go from the lowest setting to the highest setting. So this is now with the lift kit with the highest setting. And immediately you can see that the rear suspension does droop down a lot further. Here you can see that the bumper is actually not really touching the rear rock there, or the back bumper is not touching the rock, allowing me just to go a little bit further with my maneuver. Oops, maybe I took that a bit too far. But we've got grip, managing to get out of that situation quite easily. And now for the downhill. Quite a bit of debris in the back there. But the car is steady. It does seem to be a little bit higher in the rear, on the rear axle, but the car hasn't changed either. So the downhill is on all four settings, shock tower or lift kit, the same. So after this drive, I actually like the towers more than the lift kit, where I thought the lift kit might be better because of how the shock absorber sits almost in the original position. But in its highest setup, the shock is still maxing out. It hits its limit, and I don't like that at all. So you might as well just take the shock and mount it there. It's the same thing, basically. So my conclusion is the shock tower, or the universal shock tower, is definitely the way to go. It gives you more variety. It gives you a quick change of suspension setup on the trail, whereby this one I had to take everything out and put everything back in again. Here I just have one screw. I just take it out and put it back into its new setting. So these parts are 3D printed. You can check them out on thingiverse.com. You can search for TRX for shock towers, and this one you search for TRX for lift kit. So basically you find them on the website and you can download the file, give the creator a little donation and just print it out on your 3D printer. So my conclusion is, between the two, the shock tower takes the lead. Now I'm going to take the lift kit out again and reinstall the shock towers. So that's it for me this week. Thanks for watching. Click that notification bell and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.